I have 2 questions for you. First question, raise your hand if you love the Fremantle vibe. Most of you? Great. So do I. Second question, but before you answer, do keep in mind that this is being filmed for the internet, okay? So if you raise your hand now, it will be broadcast across the globe. Who here has a sexually transmitted disease? No one? Great. I've got 2 conclusions. 1, the entire world loves Fremantle. 2, STDs are no longer a thing. If you disagree with my analysis, then I have some startling news for you. Deep down, whether you like it or not, you are a statistician. Now, I know what you're thinking, statistics, numbers, oh, I was really bad at maths at school. Yeah, I get it. I hear you. Trust me, I've heard it all before. Well, I'm here today to tell you that a dislike of numbers is beside the point. Statistics is so much more than just number crunching. It's a system of critical thinking, a system that you just used. And in this era of the internet, when we're being constantly bombarded by outrageous clickbait and, dare I say it, fake news, the ability to critically analyse information isn't just some intellectual indulgence for stats nerds like me. It's actually an essential life skill for everyone. And when you just dismissed the ridiculous claims that I made on my little survey, you showed that you already have this skill somewhere in your intuition. Statistics is just there to help you articulate logical concepts that you already understand. The flaw that you spotted in my analysis is called sampling bias. This basically means that the sample that I chose isn't representative of the wider group that I'm interested in. You can spot sampling bias by asking yourself 2 questions. How was the data collected? And what sample was selected by collecting the data in this way? If you can characterise your sample differently from the way that you will characterise the wider group that you're interested in, then you have a biased sample. Let's try it on my survey. How was the data collected? I asked you a couple of questions and you got to choose whether or not to respond. Now that's a really important point. You got to choose. Who was selected by collecting the data in this way? Well, people who are physically in Fremantle right now and who are happy to disclose personal details about their sexual health to a live-streamed audience. So clearly not just anyone. I chose a very specific subgroup of the global population. In other words, my sample was massively biased. These 2 questions are a great starting point for debunking dubious facts. For example, did you know that all kangaroos in Australia are dead? Seriously, I've actually seen this with my own eyes. I drove the 4,000 kilometres from Sydney to here earlier in the year, and I'm telling you, 100% of the kangaroos that I saw on the way were totally and utterly dead. Now, if we were in a pub together enjoying a quiet beer and I dropped this nugget of wisdom on you, you could take a deep breath and ask yourself the 2 questions. How was the data collected? I looked out the window and observed kangaroos as I was driving across the Nullarbor. Which kangaroos were selected by collecting the data in this way? Well, I guess they'd be the sort of kangaroos who think it's fun to sit on the side of the road as cars and massive road trains come screaming past. There's actually a term for these sorts of kangaroos, dead. So now you have the power to use a rational, statistical argument to calmly refute unfounded claims. You could say something like, I think you'll find your sampling methodology suffers from systematic bias. Your drinking buddies will love it. But these 2 questions aren't just useful in scrutinising other people's claims, they're also useful in scrutinising our own personal beliefs. Have you ever scrolled through your social media feed and felt a slight twinge of FOMO? For those of you who don't speak internet, FOMO is a fear of missing out. Well now, whenever you feel yourself develop a reaction to any information you've just absorbed, you can ask yourself the 2 magic questions. How was the data collected? Your friends posted things to their social media page. What post was selected by collecting the data in this way? Well, first of all, they're only from friends who have social media accounts, who you're following, and who have enough of an extroverted type personality to actually want to share this stuff. Second of all, the posts themselves will be highly selective, so the authors will have to consider the content to be sufficiently hilarious or attractive or trendy or whatever it is that they're into. So there is no way that your social media feed is representative of your friends' lives. It's not even close. Your FOMO has nothing to do with you missing out. Your FOMO is the result of dodgy statistics. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, this is all kind of obvious, which is precisely my point. If I'm not rocking your world with groundbreaking insights right now, then deep down, whether you like it or not, you are a statistician. And that's a good thing. By now, you're hopefully beginning to realize that sampling bias is everywhere, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are all sorts of statistical concepts that are influencing our daily lives. And you have the ability not just to understand them, but to step in and take action when you see them being misinterpreted. Here's an example of dealing with sampling bias that's particularly close to my heart. I'm lucky enough to live in a place called Ecoburbia here in Fremantle. It's sort of an experiment in shared, sustainable urban living, and it's the passion project of these guys, Shani and Tim, or as they're known to us houselings, the benevolent dictators. We have solar, rainwater tanks, a grey water system, veggie patches, compost, bees, chooks, and, most importantly, goats. These two gorgeous creatures are called Whimsy and Pumpkin. They eat our food scraps and they provide us with milk and love. But they're not just backyard accessories, they're integral parts of our daily lives. They come to cafes with us, they play with the local kids, and they just love helping out in the garden. And the reason we're able to keep these guys is partly due to the fact that Shani and Tim are able to recognise bad statistics. Once upon a time, one of the neighbours complained to the council that the goats were stinking up the joint and crapping on his lawn. Just take a moment to think about the nature of council complaints. How is the data being collected? Concerned citizens can take it upon themselves to write to the council. What feedback is the council receiving by collecting the data in this way? Negative feedback, right? Now, this system is biased for good reason. It's helpful if you let the council know if, say, a pothole appears in your street. It's negative feedback, but it's useful. On the other hand, if you were to send your local councillor daily emails to confirm that your street's still A-OK, it would be positive feedback, but it would also be a pain in the ass. So I'm not claiming that we all need to strive for statistical purity in every aspect of our lives. I'm just saying that it's really important that we're able to critically analyse the systems around us, instead of taking them for granted. Because in this case, when it came to the goats, it was a matter of opinion, and the opinions presented to the council were not representative of the wider community. So, the benevolent dictators decided to do something about this sampling bias. They asked their neighbours to write to the council and tell them what they thought about the goats. Everyone was happy to get involved, so by the time the council inspector arrived at the property, she knew not just about the complaints from one person, but also the appreciation from the rest of the community. Shani even offered up both the goats and some freshly produced goat poo for a sniff test. The council inspector declined, but she did officially allow the goats to stay at Ecoburbia. So when I say that sampling bias is everywhere, I really mean it. It's even impacting on our options for keeping backyard goats. I've focused on sampling bias today just to show you how easy it is to understand a core statistical concept. But there's nothing special about sampling bias. I could have just as easily chosen some other concept, and you would have understood that too. Take correlation versus causation, for example. Just because two things are related doesn't necessarily mean that one causes the other. What would you think if I was to tell you that whenever ice cream sales increase, so do shark attacks? Would you think that the best way to stay safe from sharks is to stop eating ice cream? Of course not. There's a third factor at play here, the weather. When it heats up, we eat more ice cream, and we also swim more, right into the homes of sharks. So there's a genuine reason why these two things are correlated, but it doesn't mean that one causes the other. Just like sampling bias, the issue of correlation versus causation is everywhere, and you already intuitively understand this concept. But of course, it is easier to understand when I give you cute examples like ice cream and sharks. What if instead I told you that people who take vitamins tend to be healthier? It's really tempting here to fall for the correlation-causation assumption and think the reason these people are healthier is because they're taking the vitamins. But there could be a third factor at play here too. Maybe the reason these people are taking vitamins is because they're concerned about their health in general. So they're also exercising, they're eating well, they're sleeping well. Maybe that's why they're healthy. This is why it's so important that we consciously remind ourselves of these statistical concepts to avoid common logical errors. And you absolutely have the ability to do this because deep down, as you're starting to realise, you are a statistician. Mark Twain popularised the saying that there are 3 types of lies. There are lies, damned lies, and statistics. You might think that as a statistician I would be offended by this claim, but I actually think it's spot on. The foundations on which statistics stand can be easily manipulated and bent to the will of whoever's wielding it. It's like watching a magic show. You're at the mercy of the magician who will show you precisely what she wants you to see. But of course, if you're a magician yourself, then you already know all the tricks. You know about the fake wall and the sleight of hand, so you'll be much harder to fool. We all already understand the logical underpinnings of statistics. All we need to do is bring these concepts into our consciousness so that they become logical tools that we can apply in our everyday lives. These are the tools we need to see through the magician's tricks, to think critically about the world, and to debunk bullshit. And they're tools worth having because after all, you never know. One day, you might just decide to adopt a goat. Thank you.